I'm going to discuss whether or not XRP will survive and thrive or die and just start decreasing in value. Why do I do these videos, particularly with XRP? Because I want to point out that you need to do your own research and know what you own. This is not a bashing XRP video. I've made many videos in the past. Check this out. If you go to my main channel page and you scroll down, there's these different playlists. I've got one for XRP, boom or bust. There's many different videos here. I would highly recommend you look at XRP and Ripple Explained. It goes through all the differences between those two things because they are completely different. And we'll talk about that and some of the confusion. We're going to talk about the CTO. We're going to talk about RLUSD, a lot of discussion about that, the new acquisition of Hidden Road, and the fact that there's a lot of confusion out there. You can see from my playlist, I've had many videos because I get frustrated when I don't hear news from Ripple about XRP. Instead, I constantly see posts about it will hit 1,000, it'll hit 10,000, hit 50,000, hit 100,000. So let's get into it and discuss, is it going to skyrocket or is it going to go to nothing? And how both of those scenarios could potentially play out. The question is, which one do you think will happen? And if you're watching the news, you'll get a better idea of where it's going over time. Please listen to this real quick ad that I did. It's amazing. If you would, please hit that like button. Also hit subscribe. And then there's a join button here where you can also join the community. I post every video in a separate member area so that we can have conversations there, things you may not want to post to the world. Also, here's a link to my X account. I update and post when I have a new video and other information. Most importantly, I have a school community down below. Has a monthly fee, but you can interact with myself and other like-minded investors for two main reasons. I have many courses that I've put together step by step. Equally important, we have a community area where we discuss all of the various cryptos. So please take a look. There's a link down below to the school community. I appreciate your time. Now, for those of you that might have seen my past XRP videos and say, oh, you just hate XRP. No, I don't. I did one in particular, and I went through all the different XRP uses. This video was talking about optimistic view, a pessimistic view, and I just tried to look at it from both points of view. One thing I think I missed here was CBDC in this list of potential uses and whether or not that would help XRP and Ripple. But like I said, the most important video is XRP versus Ripple. And that's what we're mainly going to talk about. XRP is a cryptocurrency. Ripple is a private company. There's a line between them. Let's call it a Chinese wall, so to speak, because they are completely different. Make sure you understand, most importantly, that if you buy XRP, the crypto, you are not buying a part of Ripple. Ripple has shares and it has shareholders. So if Ripple does amazing things and just goes to the moon and makes a ton of money, that doesn't mean that XRP will benefit from any of that because they're completely different. That's where there's some confusion. Now, look at this real quick. If we look at CoinMarketCap and the top cryptos, XRP is listed as number 4 by market cap. Market cap is the current number of coins in circulation times the current price. But fully diluted, look at their fully diluted. Watch this. Let's sort by fully diluted. That means all of the coins times the current price. It is number 2. It is beating currently Ethereum. I can go to DeFi Llama and I can see that Ethereum has $46 billion. We all know a lot about Ethereum because it's been around for a while, and many financial institutions and all sorts of protocols are built on top of Ethereum. I can't find any of that for XRP. So all I can think is that XRP's its total market cap and it's fully diluted is just based on people hoping and thinking that it will do great things. You hear people, not XRP and not Ripple, not an XRP foundation and not Ripple the company, talking about what it's doing. You hear people talking about what it's doing. So they're not coming out and saying, this bank is now doing 1 million in transactions. As a matter of fact, they've never put out any information. And let's walk back how they started. 2012. I believe the company was called OpenCoin or something like that. Then they changed the name. Regardless, 2012 till now, 2025, depending upon when you're watching this video. Okay, well, that's 13 years. What are the things that they've been saying over that period of time? Solutions they're going to solve and what it will be used for. Number one, by far. I'm sure anyone watching this that knows anything about XRP can say this in their sleep. Cross-border payments. Number two was CBDCs. They talked about that for a while, central bank digital currencies. Then they stopped talking about it because some people were like, oh, I don't think I like that. But now they're talking about it again because there's some countries and others starting to bring it up. Those are their two things. Most importantly, let's talk about cross-border payments. They've been saying they're going to displace SWIFT. I did a whole video on that. No one's going to make SWIFT go away. It's just not going to happen. They may compete with SWIFT, but it's not going to go away because SWIFT is going to implement similar things. All right. Then you've got the fact that they talk about banks, but they have never given information. Now they're a private company. They are not obligated, Ripple is not obligated to discuss how much they've done in transactions. But you would think at some point that they might say, we're doing this much with banks, and by the way, they're using XRP. Ripple's solution is called RippleNet. And then they've got their on-demand liquidity. Simply put, you're going to convert whatever currency to XRP, send it via RippleNet, and then convert it back, and it's going to happen in seconds. Well, that implies a lot of things. First of all, they've shown, because they've used RippleNet without XRP. You don't have to use XRP. As a matter of fact, they've said publicly that they've used RLUSD, the new stablecoin, and we'll talk about that. So XRP doesn't need to be used by Ripple or RippleNet at all. And they've never discussed how much or how many transactions are happening with XRP. That one's really frustrated me. Then this other one, this video bothers me. Listen to this video from the CTO.
Banks, it's very sexy when you close a deal with the bank, and we do that sometimes, but they're very slow movers. They're very slow to execute. They're very conservative. They're never going to be Ripple success stories, and it's hard to get them to push the benefits down to their customers because that's risky for them, and then it highlights where they're inefficient. So we focused a lot on banks in the beginning just because a press release with a bank is a big thing, but we discovered they're just very slow to move. Like if all they want is a press release, now we're like, hey, we want to actually move billions of dollars now. And they're like, yeah, we kind of don't.
Interesting video. That's the CTO. And this was, I don't know when this video originally came out, but a lot of people have put it online. And he essentially said banks just wanted a press release. They weren't really going to move our stuff. Okay. True or not, I don't know, but the CTO's saying it. He's saying they just wanted a press release, we just wanted a press release. So be careful what you see. Now, he could, and the CEO could put out the actual numbers, but they haven't. So it's always frustrated me that the CEO has never said what they're moving in cross-border payments. Now, let's talk about something, and something a lot of people don't quite understand, and that is the XRP escrow. What is that, you might ask? Why did they have this lawsuit against them? Blah, blah, blah. Look here. This is on the XRPL.org. And it says here, Ripple had locked 55 billion of XRP, 55% of the supply, into a series of escrows. And if you read down, it says that they can release up to $1 billion a month. And whatever they don't release, they can put back into the escrow to be used later. Ripple, the company, owns, at one point, they had put in escrow 55% of XRP. If it's sold, the proceeds go to Ripple every time they sell it. So XRP is on their balance sheet as an asset. If they have, let's say, 50 billion and it's worth $2, then it's going to show they have 100 billion on their balance sheet. So one might say, and I'm not saying this is the case, but one might say there is absolutely no reason to give out any information about XRP if it's not good, right? My little lizard brain says if they had good information that would increase the price of XRP, they would release it. That's my guess. That's my intuition. I think most of us would think that. So if banks started adopting it and actually using it and sending a ton of transfers cross-border using XRP on the RippleNet and their ODL, they would talk about it, increase the price. Executing on what we thought we were going to execute. It's been 13 years and it's not happening. Of course they wouldn't say that because their balance sheet's showing $100 billion and it's going to go down. If it goes down to $1, now it's showing 50 billion. When that goes 50 cents, it's showing $500 million. When it goes to 10 cents, it's showing 100 million. So you can see what happens. That's not looking good for the balance sheet. Also, that money that comes in, I have to believe they're using to fund their operations. You see the CEO on television, whether it be CNBC or wherever. But let's think about why these things are happening. All right. So I'm old. I've been in various startup companies, East Coast, West Coast, raised venture capital from banks on the East Coast and from VCs on the West Coast. And I've been in that world. I know how they think. So if it was a brand new startup and you had some money that you raised, you might put some towards PR. You might hire a PR firm. Hey, get us in magazines. Put ads in on buildings. Get us on television so people will interview us. Let's get the word out there. So from what I see, I'm thinking to myself, from my past experience, okay, they're taking and selling XRP every month. They're getting the cash and they're using it to pay their employees and run their operations and to pay a PR firm and to get articles in magazines and to get their CEO on television. None of these or most of these other cryptos don't have a public company who benefits greatly because they own half of the cryptocurrency. So most of them don't have a public company which has to increase shareholder value. That's the whole purpose of a company, to increase and do what's in the best interest of the shareholders. So what's in the best interest of the shareholders is to increase their value. So they want to do these things, but no other crypto has that, where they've got this figurehead who's the CEO, who's getting probably a very nice salary and has to increase shareholder value, so wants to go out there and promote things. Most don't have that. So this, to me, Ripple is operating like any other startup company would. Nothing wrong with that. But just understand that Ripple and XRP are different. And in my opinion, when I've owned XRP, owned it, sold it. I don't own any at the moment of the recording of this. I would love to see it go to the moon. But something tells me, and something just doesn't feel right. It feels as if they're selling XRP, they're taking that money, and then they're using it to fund their operations and do other things. So Ripple and the shareholders are benefiting from everyone who buys XRP. So over here, XRP shareholders benefit when people buy XRP because the money goes over here. Not all XRP, but when they buy what they took out of the escrow account on a monthly basis. Whatever they put in, they get those proceeds. That's great. But to the XRP people who bought that XRP that just came out of that escrow, are they benefiting from the things at Ripple? No, they're not. Owning some XRP does not mean you own any Ripple. See? So Ripple benefits, and the shareholders, but not so much the XRP holders. And I would hate to think that if at the end of the day, this could go up, it could go down. And if it goes down, that's really going to tick me off because it's going to make me think that they used all these people as investors to fund something that was not working, and they just kept doing it year after year after year. It's been 13 years. Again, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying this is a hypothetical scenario which will frustrate and infuriate everyone, because I know a lot of people that have invested in XRP. Obviously, it has passed Ethereum in fully diluted value. And I think most people, even XRP investors, can tell you lots of things that Ethereum has done and been built on and the revenue they make every month, but they can't give you any actual stats about past performance of XRP. Past performance of Ethereum, yes. Past performance of XRP, no one knows it. They're going to say there's these NDAs and there's this and there's that. That's not past performance. You got to see actual numbers being given out by someone using it like Ripple. So to reiterate, in that hypothetical, if they're just using the sale of that money that comes out from escrow and they're using it to fund their operations and pay their people and get on TV and all of those things, well, that's a little frustrating. Now, a lot of people will say, hold on, Ripple released RLUSD. Let's talk about that for a second. So if you look at this, it says Ripple generates revenue from RLUSD. Listen, Ripple, I did not say XRP. Ripple generates revenue from RLUSD by issuance and reserve management because it's backed by US dollars, government bonds, cash equivalents. They can earn interest income, Ripple, etc. There's transactions fees. There's enterprise integration. For example, it can be used, as we've talked about, in RippleNet. They don't have to use XRP. They could completely drop XRP and just use RLUSD. In DeFi ecosystem participation, etc. So Ripple monetizes RLUSD by leveraging its issuance and reserve management. Notice I did not say anything about XRP because RLUSD makes money for Ripple, period. So why people are jumping up and down saying that's great for XRP, maybe there are some transaction fees, I don't know, but just so you know, RLUSD, I think, will be a huge moneymaker. And I think it will be great for Ripple and their shareholders. Will it be great for the people who've bought XRP? I don't see it. All right, the next thing. Ripple took money and acquired Hidden Road. They acquired Hidden Road, a global multi-asset prime broker, for $1.25 billion. It aims to integrate traditional finance markets with decentralized finance. Long story short, here's what I think they may have done. Sold XRP from escrow, taken that cash, acquired Hidden Road. They couldn't get the banks to use them, so they acquired someone who already has relationships with banks and said, why don't you use our solution? And in effect, the banks would be using their solution through this third party. So they're growing through acquisition. That could very well be the case. Now, if we look at, and I use Grok, and I said, how would Hidden Road use XRP or RLUSD? And it says here, it talks about the use of RLUSD as collateral and using it for transactions. Doesn't say XRP. It says possibly some trade activities on XRPL, not necessarily using XRP. And it says Hidden Road has had no direct statements on XRP's specific role. So it also says at the bottom, I'm going to save you some time, Hidden Road has confirmed using RLUSD as collateral for prime brokerage services and migrating post-traded activities to XRPL. XRP's role is implied through XRPL's transaction framework, but not explicitly detailed by Hidden Road beyond Ripple's broader vision. All right, so that came from Grok, basically saying Hidden Road has not discussed XRP. They have discussed RLUSD. So in the best case scenario, Hidden Road is now acquired by Ripple, and they start interacting with all of their customers, and they use RippleNet and the ODL, and they use XRP. Now, when people talk about cross-border payments, you might think to yourself, well, and I did a video on this, you buy XRP or convert it to XRP, you shoot it across RippleNet and you convert it back, and they say it happens in just seconds. That's one of the great benefits, is its speed. Another great benefit is that you don't have to have those that are transferring the money essentially twice the capital, which you have to have in the old system. That's another huge benefit. And the third thing is they'll say, okay, well, if it's being shot back and forth that fast, it's not going to affect XRP's value because it's just you buy it and then you immediately sell it. How does that help XRP go up? And the argument is, and it's, I think, valid, that in order to transfer a lot of money constantly, all day long, if they get up to a lot of volume, if there's only 100 billion XRP, and each XRP is worth $1, well, that's only 100 billion if you had all of it available. If you only had 20 billion available on the market, and you need to sell 100 billion, send 100 billion, well, then it would have to be worth $5. So the argument is you don't have much in circulation. In order to send large amounts of money fast, constantly, XRP has to go up in value. And that's where people start saying, well, okay, then it should be worth $10. Well, what if we transfer $1 trillion? Well, then it should be $100. Well, what if we transfer $100 trillion? Well, then it should be, $1,000. So that's how they get those values. Whether or not that comes to fruition, I don't know. And the reason is XRP can fluctuate. And to me, if I had to say XRP versus RLUSD, what if I use XRP and I send $100 million, and by the time it shows up, the price changes, and I now only have $99 million. I lost $1 million. No one wants that when they transfer money. The argument's going to be, but it transferred so fast, it's not going to happen. Okay, I get it. But the point is, that price can vary. RLUSD is a stable coin. When you send 100 million, you get 100 million. So if you ask me, hey, banking customer, do you want to send your money and take a chance? It might be worth more. It might be worth less. Or do you want to use this one and get exactly what you send? I think my customer would prefer exactly what they send. Yeah, that would make sense. So we've got these various factors here. And you got to understand, XRP and Ripple are different. XRP doesn't have to be used. Ripple makes money from RLUSD, and they could use it instead of XRP and still use RippleNet, etc. They bought this new company. Where'd the money come from? I'm assuming it came from the selling of XRP. And I would hate to think that all these people buying XRP are doing nothing other than giving money to Ripple so that their shareholders can have a company worth more, because they're taking that money and they're acquiring other companies and growing through acquisition. So I hope that's not the case. All right, so I think I've made my point in terms of the fact that XRP and Ripple are different. XRP doesn't have to be used by Ripple. Ripple's selling, and I think at the moment they have about 37 billion still in escrow. So at $2, what's that, 74 billion worth of XRP? They can sell up to a billion XRP, which means up to 2 billion a month, and use it for whatever they want. Operations, salaries, get on television, go to train stations and post XRP, go to Times Square and put it up on a building, and they're using potentially the money coming from people who are buying the XRP that's coming out of escrow, and then also potentially acquiring other companies and growing the shareholder value of Ripple. And the shareholder value of Ripple doesn't directly impact XRP. So XRP could potentially be left out in the cold. On the flip side, if something like this new Hidden Road acquisition were to use XRP solely or predominantly, maybe that would help XRP take off. So I could see either one of these happening. But I make these videos so you do your own research. You look online, forget the fluff, and ask, what are they really doing? Let me show you two things that are a little confusing here, because the confusion is still out there. Here's someone that says XRP doesn't need to integrate with Swift, it's replacing it. Personally, and I did a whole video on this, I don't think Swift's going away. It is pretty entrenched. It's testing out other ways of transferring. It's going to compete. I think most people would say Swift is going to compete. But here's the one that's most confusing. And I actually like this individual very much. I think they're brilliant. I love watching their videos, but and they may have just typed this really quick. I don't know. But it says, Ripple investors in 2050. It's a video of this happy guy after buying XRP for the price of a bottle of water in 2017. Okay, Ripple investors are happy after buying XRP. Okay, well, if you buy XRP, you are not a Ripple investor. Is it possible that someone who invested and is a shareholder in Ripple, one of the VCs that got some of the initial shares because they raised money initially from venture capitalists, is it possible that some of them bought XRP and the price may go up? Right, but this looks more like it's saying, if you buy XRP, you're a Ripple investor. Please, if you're watching this video, I want you to come out of this knowing one thing, that if you buy XRP, you are not a Ripple investor, period. Be careful, watch what they're doing. When you see posts about, are you going to buy a Lamborghini when XRP goes to $10? Just keep going. Don't read it. Don't pay attention to it. Look for the posts that say, the Ripple CEO, Brad, was on CNBC. Well, okay, great. What did he say? What you want to look for is, did he announce a new partner that is using XRP for cross-border payments? And if so, how much are they sending? Look for that. I hope that day comes, and I hope it rockets XRP, and whoever owns it makes a ton of money. Personally, big dumb animal. This is not financial advice, informational purposes only. I am very skeptical. Hope this was helpful. We can all make generational wealth together with crypto. Have a great day.